All right. So the next thing we're going to learn about is going to be
Hard drive.
hard drive. Does anybody know what a hard drive is?
Yeah. I don't remember.
You don't remember? Well, what's a hard drive, Audrey?
It's for music.
It's for music. You can store music. You can store stuff on your hard drive to be able to play music. So you can download music files, store them on your hard drive, and you can listen to music. So that's all right. You can definitely use it for music. Anything else? Anybody else?
It's for downloading stuff.
It's basically your storage for your computer. So you can store all of your data, whether it be music files, whether it be documents that you created, anything that you want to store can be stored on a hard drive. Alright, hard drives come in different sizes. You can get 6 gigabytes, 20 gigabytes, a terabyte. Just depends on how much storage you think you're going to need. So you can get all different kinds of sizes on that. It's a magnetic recording device. So see this thing right here? This thing basically is going to spin. Can you go sit down, please? So that's what a hard drive does. It's going to spin around, and it's going to store your data, and it's also going to access your data. So obviously, since it's a magnetic device and it's spinning, there's moving parts in here. So obviously, anytime you have moving parts in an electronic device, there's a possibility that that could break. So a lot of times what people will do is they have their data stored on this hard drive, but they'll also store a backup somewhere else. Whether they store the backup on the cloud.
And they work for games.
They do work for games. You can store your games on there too. So you can store a backup to the cloud, or you can store your backup to another hard drive, an external hard drive. You can install another hard drive on your computer. We'll do questions at the end, okay?
And
so wherever you want to store that backup.
For fans.
Okay. So you can back up that data, but it's always important to have a backup because once again, with these moving parts, there's always a possibility of it breaking. You don't want to lose all of your data and have no way of getting that back. So being able to have a backup is always nice. Stores your data, rotating circular patterns, which we just talked about. When you get an actual hard drive, can you sit down, please? When you get a hard drive for your computer, there's a few things that obviously you're going to need to know. You're going to need to know how large you want, the gigabytes, terabytes, how much storage you're going to need. But you're also going to want to know how fast it goes. So your RPMs is how fast it's going to spin and how fast it's going to read data. So if you have a slower RPM, it's going to take a little bit longer for it to read your data. So if you're trying to load a file, it might take a little bit to find that file. Where if you have faster RPMs, it'll spin faster and it'll locate your data faster. So higher RPMs on your hard drive, obviously the better. The more expensive it's going to be, the more data, the more RPMs you have, it's going to take a little bit. The data transfer rates can vary. It is slower than what we call an SSD, which is a solid state drive, which we'll talk about next. But these are your typical ones. The hard drive has kind of been the standard for quite a while. Most likely going to probably eventually change to the solid state drives, but the hard drive right now is kind of the standard. So we'll take a look at the hard drives in the laptop, the desktop, and we'll take a look at those, how they go in and out. I'll let you guys kind of play around with those a little bit.
Will they be like this one?
Yeah, that's what they look like.
I want to do this.
So this one here has 2 hard drives in. Let me just move this power supply. Alright, so these 2 things right here are your hard drives. This one you're probably not going to be able to get out without a screwdriver. I think I have that one screwed in pretty well. But this one here you can go ahead and take out if you'd like. So you see how it's hooked up here with these cables. That's one cable here is to give it power. See how this power is running through here to the power supply, and then this cable here is to run it into the motherboard, which we'll talk about at a later date. But this is your standard hard drive, so you can unplug it if you want to. You can unplug those 2 cables out of there.
This?
Yep.
Out.
Pull. Don't be afraid to pull hard. You got to be strong. Take these things out. Don't be afraid of them. There you go.
That hurt.
What hurt? They're not going to break on you. Alright, so does that look like what's, well, it looks a little bit different. It's got a case on it, so this is where, yep, that's where that platter that spins on there is located, right underneath there. So that's where that spins on there.
It's the thing that spins.
Yep, it's right underneath there. So this thing, it's right underneath this casing. That's the thing that's going to spin. It's got this protector on there to keep it from getting damaged.
I think I can spin it.
I don't think so.
It's so easy.
So in this, if you look on the other side, this, so remember how I said about the gigabytes and how much storage can be stored on there? And I also talked about the RPMs and how much or how fast it spins. So if you look at this, this will tell you those things right here. So how many, what does it say? How many gigabytes?
500.
So that's 500 gigabytes. Let's see, does it talk about the RPMs on here anywhere? I don't know if it's got it listed on there.
No. Wait,
Nope, you're right, Aj. It doesn't see the RPMs on there, but so that's a 500 gigabyte drive. And once again, these are pretty much interchangeable between your desktops. I mean, it's not, as long as you have the connectors on the back, you can pretty much hook it up into any one. It's really not too big of a deal. But you want to go ahead, well, we don't want to take those off. We're not going to take it apart. That's still a usable drive and it still has data on it that we can get off. But if you want to slide that back in, there's casing slots for these, so they kind of slide in and then you screw, in this one you screw them in at the bottom, but you can just slide it on in there. Now we're not going to screw it in or anything, but then, so once again, this cable right here, what is this cable for?
this?
What is it for though? What does this one do? You remember what this one's going to do?
No.
Okay, so where does this cable lead to? Where is this going to? See how it's coming up into here? And then it runs to this big box? What is this big box?
Power.
This is your power supply.
Dad,
So this
how
cable
do we
here,
take this off?
hey Audrey, let's wait till we're done with this to discuss that stuff, okay? So this is your power. This is how you're going to give that device power. So when we slide this back in, we need to give it power in order for it to work. So that's what this does. So Jonah, do you want to try plugging that in? Okay, so we'll pull it out a little bit. So look at where the clips are right there. See how that's a small one and that's a big one? So the power goes into the bigger one there. Turn it sideways though, it's got to slide. See these clips? Look right here. See how that's got a slide in there? So it just goes straight like that and pushes straight down. Put it right over the top, like you're sliding it right on top of it. Like you put a glove on your hand. There you go. Oh, very good. Almost got it.
There.
You got it. So that goes on just like that. Somehow.
That's hard.
Backwards.
It's as hard as it is to get it
There you go.
off.
Yeah, backwards. Alright, so the next one goes in there. So this is the one that runs right to your motherboard. So that one just slides right into that next slot there.
It should be
Right next to it. Oh, right there, yep. Slides right in.
I need to play games for a little bit.
Oh, it shouldn't be annoying. Oh, yeah, maybe it was.
I need to play games for a little bit, Daddy.
Let's slide that right in there. Slides right over the top. There
Daddy,
you
I
go,
need
perfect.
to play.
So then we go ahead and we slide this back in there. If we wanted to secure it, we'd screw it in there and we get it all set. And then after you put the hard drive in there, when you boot up your computer, you can go through and you can format it and you can do some different things with it. We'll talk about those other things at a later point, but that just kind of gives you a little bit of detail on the hard drives there. So that's the hard drive. You guys have any questions on? Okay, go ahead. Oh, did you want to look at the laptop? Well, go ahead with your question.
Audrey was going to play games.
Yeah, well, we're not going to play any games. So the hard drive on your laptop devices, usually you can, yeah, Aj, your questions that you've been asking haven't pertained to anything that we've been talking about here, so this one doesn't do that. But a lot of these devices, oh, there it
I
is.
didn't
So
do
these things,
any
so if you look at this, it's got a little picture of a storage icon there. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Looks like a bunch of little discs. So that usually tells you where your hard drive is going to be. So that means your hard drive is underneath this panel. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take off these screws. And we'll get underneath this panel here. Alright, so you want to go ahead and you can pop that out of there.
And
Might be
this?
screwed. I don't know if it's screwed down. Oh, yeah, 2 screws right there. Let's not throw the screws around.
Should we get this off?
What?
The sticker?
No, that can stay on. That just helps you take it out.
So I can
Alright,
get
so you can
it
go ahead
off.
and pull those up. Just pull it up. Use this sticky things. Pull them out of there.
Oh, I might rip
You're gonna
this.
lose those. No, don't worry about it.
Oh no, I lost
Don't be
one.
afraid to handle these things. You don't need to worry about constantly breaking stuff. Just pull it up. No, just lift both the tabs, 2 tabs.
What? Those?
It's screwed down there too. They got this one really tied in there.
And here.
Yep. So you'll find that when you try to take stuff out, you'll see that you think you got all the screws and then you don't have all the screws. And so there's the hard drive for your laptop.
Pokey.
So the difference, so you see the difference in those two? What do we do with the other one here?
This one, uh-oh. This one's broken.
Don't worry about it. It's just a casing. Once you put the screws back on, it's fine. So look at the difference between those two.
Smaller.
Yep. Obviously laptop compared to a desktop. Now what does this one say? Does it say how many gigabytes this one is? Top
40?
40. So that's a 40 gigabyte compared to 500. It's obviously a huge difference in data. So this one has a lot more storage availability than that one
But
does.
this one's pokier.
Well, it just depends on the device and how it connects in. So it's just kind of a weird connector on that one. Go ahead, Jonah.
The stuff in this are always littler than the stuff in that.
That's right. It's because your desktops are quite a bit bigger than your laptops. Your laptops are more portable devices, made to just kind of sit with you. Any other questions on the hard drive? Do we remember what a hard drive is?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it for? Jonah, can we stop, please? Storage, that's right. It's going to store your data for you. And depending on how much data you have will determine, once again, how many gigabytes. If you need a terabyte, if you need a lot of storage, laptop, desktop, what size you want. Alright, so that's kind of a brief overview of hard drives. Then we'll touch on the solid state drives.